Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is a man used to the spotlight, but this week the media attention was hotter than usual. Hegseth put operational details about recent air attacks on the commercial chat signal. We only know this because a reporter was mistakenly invited into the chat by the National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Hegseth said the information was not classified. Now, in hearings in Congress this week, it seemed like other cabinet officials on that chat were deflecting blame over to Hegseth. So, Michael, should the defense secretary resign or be fired?
Well, some of you may recall that back in mid-February, Senate Armed Services Committee Chairperson Roger Whitaker, a Republican senator from Mississippi, said that Pete Hegseth made a rookie mistake. He called it a rookie mistake in his comments about Ukraine in a speech at NATO headquarters. So here we are a month and a half later, and again he makes another rookie mistake. But instead of acknowledging his failings, he turns to the old tired and exhausted playbook of deflecting and equivocating and blaming others for his shortcomings. So it's not clear to me how much longer a person so unqualified should be allowed to serve in the role of Secretary of Defense. However, I don't expect him to be resigned or to be fired, but it does appear that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is in the crosshairs of the president as the fall guy. So we'll see what happens there, but the last place I want to be is in the crosshairs of this president in Mike Waltz's shoes.
Well, Hegseth, when he was nominated, one of the criticism, I mean, there were several, but one was that he was inexperienced. He really has not served in a capacity anywhere approaching running the biggest organization in the government. Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, it's so ironic too, right? In the President Trump's attacks on DEI and saying people aren't qualified, people like even people that were in the administration that he has since let go, and yet he puts in all these unqualified, frankly, white men, right? So it's a little bit of affirmative action for unqualified white men, and we're seeing the results of that now with all these, like you said, Michael, rookie mistakes. But I think it's not just that they're buffoons. I would say that there's some really bad actors here as well, right? I mean, there's some talk about how they are deliberately using these signal apps in order to prevent having official records and get around the laws about official record keeping, which means that the American people aren't going to be privy to any of these conversations because they are going to be disappearing after 4 weeks, 4 months.
Mm-hmm. They're not the only ones who have done that, though, right? I mean, we've seen that sort of action before, trying to get around government regulations to preserve communication. Tara, what about the response of the administration?
Well, first of all, it's an expected response. This is an administration, we saw it with the first Trump administration, we see it now, that never publicly recognizes that a mistake has been made, whether it was President Trump saying he had no clue what was going on, whether it was the various other government officials, some of whom were on this signal chat as well, basically saying, no, these were not classified pieces of information, no, there was no operational information in this chat, et cetera. They rarely acknowledge that they've made a mistake, and which would have been the better thing here, to have simply said, this was a mistake, it was wrong, we will make sure it doesn't happen again. And I don't even think we'd still be talking about it. It wouldn't be good, but I don't think we'd really still be talking about it. But instead, they double down on, this is the Democrats looking for something to complain about. They double down on, no, this was not operational information, which clearly it was. They've doubled down on, no, it wasn't classified. And there's that whole question of, was it classified at the time versus whether it was classified later? And sadly, you've only had a few members, Republican members of Congress, be willing to say, yes, this not only was a mistake, yes, this was information that really is classified information, or it was operational information. Obviously, you've had Democrats make it very clear that they see this as problematic, and they also see it as hypocritical on the part of the Trump administration, considering some of the things that were said, for example, about Hillary Clinton's emails.
They also see it as a political gift.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, what about the semantics, Michael? You referred to that to some extent, and there's this whole thing about war plans versus attack plans that they're now seizing on the difference in the second Atlantic article. We should say that the reporter who's the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, is, while Trump has certain issues with him, is a well-known, well-respected, and highly sourced national security reporter. But he, in the first article, said war plans, and in the second, when he, okay, here's what's actually in the chat, said attack plans, and they're making a big deal out of that.
I think it's fascinating how they try to implicate Goldberg as if he asked to be in this debacle. Right? He wasn't asked to be in it. He was placed in it by them. So I find that fascinating. But I do think that the wordsmithing that they are expert at, in some quarters, is losing its cachet. I would say that to you honestly. I think that how they manipulate reality and how they change the narrative on a daily basis, I think that in some quarters it may be losing its power and its cachet, because I think now it's starting to be overdone and expected. So I think what they do is a lot more transparent to regular folk than it used to be.
What about the vice president's role in all this, J.D. Vance? He was on that chat and participated as well.
Well, I was really struck by his remarks about Europe and just his disdain for our European allies, and also for this sort of transactional idea of, like, if we do this for Europe, we preserve these shipping channels, what are they going to give us in return? It really speaks to kind of their whole view of what's in America's interests and national security. And so I think this, if we zoom out a little bit from this one incident, right, we can say that I think over the 2 months' time, we can see that Trump and his administration do not have the best interests of America, either at home or abroad, in terms of security. I mean, they just recently have put a hold on attempts to counter Russian sabotage and cyber attacks. They're undermining and alienating our allies and NATO. Here at home, they're using resources to go after graduate students who write foreign graduate students who write op-eds opposing Israel's policy. FBI counterterrorism is going after random individuals who are, blowing up Teslas, right?
So
it's a waste of resources.